Now let's look at H5P. So something has changed with the way you set up H5P. There's this new concept of a content library. So I'm just going to expand our navigation again. And we have all of our regular navigation here along the side that allows us to see like participants and grades and all that good stuff. If we go a little bit further down, there is usually another section in here that allows us to, if you're kind of using a different theme, to pull in your content library. So that's seen there. Oh, sorry, content bank is up here. So depending on what theme you're using, it might kind of like appear a little bit differently, but your content bank is kind of where you want to go. So there's this idea of where you can build a bank of information, a bank of activities, and you can build these H5P resources, put them in the bank, and then pull them into your courses when you want to use them. So as a first step here, I'm just going to go in and see if there's anything in this course for our content bank, and there's not. So I have the option here of actually creating an activity. So that would have me go through all the steps of creating them. And there are, a number of activities, and they're fairly straightforward to do. They're very intuitive. So, usually it's pretty easy to just select one and go through the steps to create one. We do have some recorded webinars on specifically how to create H5P activities. So I recommend checking those out if you're kind of curious on how to do that. We're going to save some time and energy today and just upload a pre-made one. So I'm just going to go to the upload option. We can drag and drop one right into this area, or you can go through the selecting option where we'll be able to select off of our desktop. And I have pre-created one, so I'm just going to pull H5P activity in here. You'll see that it has the H5P extension. I'm just going to drop that in, and this is going to upload. And depending on how large your H5P package is, it might take a second or two to load. So that's in there. I'm just going to save that. And now we have that part of our content library, which is great. One thing that's going to do is it's just going to take a second here to kind of like unpack the actual file itself. And it's going to give you a preview and essentially show you what that file is. If you need to, once it's loaded here, you can even go to edit it if you choose to. So it's showing us here what our package looks like. And we have all these slides, and we can kind of preview it, which is quite nice. Everything looks good, so I'm just going to keep it as is. So I'm just going to hit the close option here. Now that we have that in our library and we can see that there, I can now bring it into the course. So let's go back to our course outline here by just clicking the navigational breadcrumb. And in this topic, I'm just going to click activity, and I'm going to go to, well, since it started here, the H5P activity. It allows us to fill in a name. So I'm just going to put H5P presentation. And I could fill in a description, but I'm lazy, so I'm not going to. This allows us to upload a file here if we choose to. So it's kind of nice to have that as an option. Or what we can do is, again, we can kind of pull this into our content library that we've just gone to. So let's go to this area here. And you can see here that we have these different areas we can pull content from. And since we have this in our content bank, I'm just going to select this here. One option we have is to make a copy of the file or link to the original. The nice thing is that if we link to the original, it's going to update itself. And it's going to update itself across all the courses where it's used, all the areas where it's used. If I've used this multiple times, this saves me time and energy if I go for this create an alias shortcut, because it's just kind of pointing towards the original, and I just have to update the original. So this is really handy. So I'm just going to select that. We have our H5P activity there, which is great. The next thing I'm just going to kind of show is some of the options. So essentially we can allow download, we can allow embedding or copying. So these are all options you have. If there's any scored components in your H5P activity, you can set how that scoring is going to work and operate here. You can set a grade to pass. So if this was out of 100 points, I'm just going to say that our grade to pass is 50%. There's attempt options, so you can set how many attempts that are allowed, or essentially how the attempts are going to be handled. So you can set that there. So it's going to take our highest grade. And then there's just your common kind of module settings. If you wanted to restrict access or set activity completion up, you can do that as well. So I'm just going to take a look at the activity completion, and I'm going to say that it's considered complete when students receive a grade on it. It could be any grade in this particular case. So I'm just going to save that, return to our course. Now we have this new H5P activity in our course. I'm just going to turn editing off. Again, editing might be something that you see in a different place. This theme places the editing up here at the top. Before, you might have seen it at a gear here to the side. Moodle has actually turned essentially turned editing on back for some of the themes. So you might see that in this area. So that's one of those changes that they did. But let's take a look at what this looks like. We have our presentation here, and it's just taking a second here to just kind of set itself up, pull the package in, and usually it just does this as a one-time kind of thing while it's setting everything up. And we have our presentation visible. The nice thing is with the H5P activities, you could always go to full screen to maximize the viewing, and you can kind of walk people through. We have our text that we threw in here and we created, and we have our questions, and we can do these knowledge checks as we're going through. So it's quite nice to have all of that. I won't bring us through all the slides, but that's how you would be able to set up the H5P activity in your course now. It's nicely integrated. It's part of the core with the integration, so it makes it a nice experience there for people.